coaches with his resume as the Raiders coach would be on the hot seat because he has an unprecedented contract, and it's a contract for a team that is not known for paying people to not work for them. I don't know how hot his seat actually is. I think that unless it is a disastrous season, like a 3-14 season, he'll be back next year. I don't know you can say the same for Mike Mayock. Because at least with Gruden, you're like, oh, they won 4 games, and they won 7, then they won 8. You see slight progression. Mayock's taken some big swings, and they've been big misses. The AB thing was an unmitigated disaster. And I know Coach might not like this, but one of the reasons I think GMs are hesitant to go out of the norm in the first round of the draft is people miss on draft picks all the time. But if you miss on a guy that everyone thought was going to go top 10 in the top 10, it's like, hey, we were all wrong. But if you take Cleveland Farrell 4 and everyone's like, really? I had him 24. And then it doesn't work out, that's more glaring. He's got a few picks like that. And so I think if there's going to have to be a fall guy in Oakland, if they're bad this year, it's more likely to be Arnett, even though Gruden,
Vegas.
First 5 years of his career, 50-30, 5-2 in the playoffs, a Super Bowl, all that. The last 9 years, he's well under 500, 0-2 in the playoffs. He's 19-29 with the Raiders. It's been a long time since he was a great coach. But that 10-year contract, Coach, that gives you a lot of wiggle room. And I think that is going to probably be a saving grace.
Yeah, you're not going to feel any heat on your seat when you're sitting on all that cash. I mean, we're talking about $60 million in dead money. And that's a staggering amount of dead money. It's not an organization that's historically been flushed with cash either. Now, the move to Vegas has changed that, but they're not going to eat that, not after this season. Maybe they'll go to year 5. This is going to go a while, and there could be a fall guy. Now, the AB miss, okay, that was a big miss, but New England missed big on him too. So it's not like they were alone in missing, and you could look at that organization and say it's really well run. So let's give them a pass on that. On some of the draft picks, I respect their willingness to take some chances on guys that they believe in them. It shows conviction, and if you miss, you deal with that. But the idea that Mayock is making these decisions in a vacuum, that's not the case. There's only one guy who controls every single move in that organization, and it's Jon. So if Mayock goes, it really is a fall guy. It's not the guy who's responsible for the problems that are there.
Yeah, look, for all the reasons you guys said, Gruden, I don't believe is on the hot seat. I think he should be. I really believe he should be. He's had 3 seasons with the Raiders, and they have yet to post a winning record. And 2 years before he got there, they were 12-4. All right, and you guys know this. In the NFL, a great coach comes in right away in many cases and changes the fortunes. Sean McDermott in Buffalo gets them to the playoffs for their first time in 17 years in his first season. We saw what Sean McVay did with the Rams. We saw what Andy Reid did in Kansas City. Coach Mangini, your first year with the Jets, you go from, they were 4-12 before you got there, 10-6 in your first year. So why are we sitting around waiting and giving Gruden these excuses? The fact is, since he won that Super Bowl in Tampa Bay with Tony Dungy's players, not taking credit from him, but that's just the fact, Gruden has not had success. In his last 6 years in Tampa after the Super Bowl, they never won a playoff game. And I just said what he's done with the Raiders, so he should be on the hot seat, Nick, but we know he's not.
But in fairness, though, to Jon, Bill Belichick was a head coach in Cleveland for 5 years and had 1 winning season, and we'd all agree that he's a great head coach. And when you try to completely overhaul a team and change the culture, it's not an easy process to go through. And I think owners now are in the mindset of they want you to cook a turkey, but they want you to cook it in a microwave. So ideally, he's building the organization in a way that can compete for a championship every year. And that takes time. But year 4 is more time than most people get. And we should collectively see significant progress, especially late in the season. That's where the problems have been, is they've started out strong and then they faded.
Off. Yeah.
I think all 3 seasons they've had more difficulties later than early.
That's right. Yeah, and Mark Davis wants that turkey cooked at P.F. Chang's, actually, if you read about Mark, but that's neither here nor there. I want to make this clear. I am rooting for, even though I don't like the Raiders, I'm from Kansas City, blood feud with the Raiders my whole life, I am rooting for Mike Mayock for the pure reason of, I think more sports teams across all sports should go with the method of hiring someone from television to run an organization. I think it's brilliant. I think it's forward thinking. I really need him to succeed for my long-term goals to come into play. But Coach, I know you hated the committee's tiers. You just wrecked the committee's tiers. I look at the Raiders this year.
That was tough to watch.
I think
for some of the other players, I think he'll be all right. It's hard, right? Because these are kids. These are 18, 19-year-olds. When you're in the NFL locker room and someone gets paid, you don't really talk about another guy's money. You give them a hard time. You say, hey, dinner's on you. Congrats on the deal, all this stuff. But it's hard because there will be influences. If you're C.J. Stroud's, friends, closest friends, are they saying to him, hey, man, you're the starter. Why aren't you making $2 million over 3 years? This kid is even starting. Can he handle that and say, I'll be all right. Let this all take care of itself. I'll have my own opportunities coming forward. I have to worry about how I play on the field, and it will lead to more deals. From a business perspective, I think it's wild. Will this deal set the mark for, Arch Manning coming up? If Quinn Ewers, for some reason, doesn't see the field in the next 2-3 years, does a company's now go, ooh, I don't know about taking a kid who's actually never taking a snap? I really don't see dissension unless Quinn says, hey, you know what? I'm going to miss this guy's dinner because I have an appearance. Or, hey, I'm going to miss this, class because I have an appearance at the sign.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe that's where it comes into dissension. But honestly, guys go out there and just play football. And I think at the end of the day, you got to let your play lead to more and more deals for you. And this is just the new normal in college football.
I feel like Arch is going to be okay, even if he doesn't get signed by some random company.
So.
I feel like his path is set for him.
So.
All right, before we let you go, James, give us a player that you are absolutely looking forward to, someone that's just going to electrify college football this season, pop off the screen. Give us a guy you're watching.
Well, it's Spencer Rattler. I mean, when you think about explosive offenses, you're saying Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, and you just look at the success they've had in the past. And when you look at last year, he had 47 passes over 20 yards, and that's with a rough start. I mean, the rough start to the season, he had 6 turnovers, I think, in 10 quarters, got benched versus Texas, came back towards the end of the year, and a lot of those passes were you see the dive over there for the touchdown. I think there's just naturally a built-in excitement when you watch Oklahoma on offense. It's been talked about ad nauseum about the defenses in the Big 12. I just think that sets up a perfect template for Spencer Rattler to be the most exciting football player in college football.
And the best name in college football.
James Laurinaitis, thank you so much. Really good stuff. Again, your Buckeyes, Ohio State taking on Minnesota, 7:30 Eastern tonight, only on Fox. I'm so excited. Have a good day. Thank you so much, James. We are back talking some basketball. Can Joel Embiid convince Ben Simmons to stay?